Hey family, did you know that white folk got reparations in Washington, D.C. because the slaves were set free? Yes, you heard that right. The enslavers got reparations, not the enslaved. Let's get into this, y'all. Before the Emancipation Proclamation freed the enslaved people in the Confederate States in 1863, slavery was still legal in the United States capital, which is D.C. So, on April 16, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the D.C. Compensated Emancipation Act. Now, what did this act do? First, it abolished slavery in Washington, D.C. Some of y'all didn't even know D.C. had slaves, huh? Yes, it abolished slavery in D.C. It freed over 3,000 enslaved people. And the most controversial thing is it paid the former enslavers up to $300 per person, per slave, as compensation for their loss of property. Oh my God. It's as if, you got to remember, slaves were seen as property anyway. So the government basically gave them, let's say, an insurance policy, right? For paying them for their loss. It's almost like, if you have a State Farm or Geico and you have flood insurance at your house and your property gets damaged, what do they pay you? They give you money for property damage. This is exactly what a government did in 1862 for the slaves because they were property. So they paid the white slave owners compensation for the loss of their property, their slaves. Oh my God. So let me explain how this worked. Okay. The U.S. government set aside $1 million, which was an enormous amount back then, to compensate white slave owners. Slave owners were invited to submit petitions, right? Detailing how many enslaved people they had, what kind of work the enslaved people did, and how much money they believed they owed. It's just like if you've ever filed a claim at your house because of property damage for your insurance company to pay you, you have to be very specific, right? You got to write down how many items you had, what color, where you got them from, everything. Same with this. The petitions were still, and the thing is, I'm going to show you all some pictures of some of the petitions because they're still preserved in National Archives today. And they include, you all, grotesque levels of detail. Like they describe the enslaved person's skin color, their body size, their skill level, and even their temperament. And if you did that, you get higher payouts. So let me give you an example. A white woman named Elizabeth Patterson was paid $1,200 for the freedom of 4 enslaved individuals, essentially billing the government for the forced labor of people she had owned. So the enslaved didn't get no reparations, no money back. The enslavers did. Why? All because slaves were not human, they were property. And just like any great insurance company, they will pay you for your property that's damaged. Oh my goodness. So what did the formerly enslaved receive? I'm glad you asked. What did the former slaves get? The D.C. Compensated Emancipation Act did not provide anything. They didn't get nothing. They didn't get land. They didn't get money. They didn't get wages. They didn't get education. They didn't get health care. They didn't get housing. They got nothing. The only thing it offered was conditional freedom. Let me tell you what that meant. In fact, the separate part of the law authorized $100 payments. Listen to this, $100 payments to formerly enslaved people, but only if they agreed to voluntarily immigrate to another country, y'all, like Liberia or Haiti. So the only money that the government was going to give the enslaved, the now newly freed slaves, was $100 so that they can get their black behinds up out of the United States and go to either Liberia or Haiti. They don't teach this in school, did they, y'all? I know you didn't know this. How many of y'all had heard of the Compensation Emancipation Act? So this was part of the colonization movement that the white man sought to remove black people from the United States entirely, y'all. Doesn't that sound familiar today? Doesn't that sound familiar with what Elon and Trump and so many others are trying to do? Bring over white South Africans or get rid of all the brown people? My. Ooh, what needs to be taught in today's history classes? Why this matters in reparation conversations today? Well, when people argue that reparations are unrealistic or not fair, they're arguing the fact that the U.S. has already paid reparations, just not to the victims, you all. Not to the victims. DC slave owners were compensated for their lost wealth. Enslaved people, the blacks, who endured generations of unpaid labor, violence, family separation, were given freedom and nothing else, you all. This is a clear historical precedent where the United States government acknowledged that slavery was a system of economic value and chose to restore that value to white citizens, not to black Americans, y'all. So what's the modern impact, guys? This history is one of the reasons why April 16th is celebrated in DC as Emancipation Day. But very few people even know the full story behind it. Hell, I grew up in DC and did not know this until I started doing research. It's also a crucial example in the larger conversation about racial wealth gaps, systemic inequality, and why reparations for Black Americans today are not just about justice, you all. It's about correcting past economic policy. So, what do you all think about this? Did you all even know? I mean, and the audacity, oh my God, the white audacity to pay the slave owners in DC money because their slaves were set free. Because all the poor whites, all their poor little property, them poor little black Negroes are gone. We have to pay you. But yet those who did all the work got nothing. I'm not making this stuff up, y'all. This is real. So this, I'm telling you all, all this conversation, the gaslighting about we can't give you reparations. America, you have paid reparations. 1862. It's not that you can't, it's just that you don't want to. Because if you did, it would mean that you had to address the fact that a wrong was made. I realize none of you people today watching, no white person today that I know of, maybe you have, but I don't think you have enslaved a black person. So I'm not teaching this to make you feel guilty. I'm teaching it so you can be educated. And then you can help educate your children and your family. And hopefully, if you're a teacher, educate your students. And then if you're a politician, you need to educate your constituents, and your constituents need to educate you, and it needs to go back and forth, and eventually it needs to hit the floor of Congress. And then it needs to get to the walls of the Supreme Court, because reparations is the only thing that is going to really set free the sins of America's original sin, which was chattel slavery. Thank you all for watching. Can you like, share, and subscribe to my channel? If my videos bless you all, just leave a comment. I love reading what you all have to say. And I'm going to tell you now, when you all start talking the negative stuff, especially you racists, I don't even read it. I stop at the first sentence. And so don't even waste your time trying to text it down there below, okay? But continue to like, share, and subscribe. And, hey, I got my Venmo here. Feel free to bless a sister. Give, and it'll be given back to you. All right, y'all. I appreciate you all. Be blessed. Talk to you soon. Bye.